Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias, back inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. I feel like you need to hit up Drew at Copiers Plus to see if he can come up with a cloud-based version of your summer off-season protocols concert. Right before I hit record on today's show, you've got your day planner out.
Yeah.
Your big calendar, and you're writing things down.
Calendar.
The big calendar. You're writing down concert dates. Tell me we've hit the off season thanks to the Carolina Hurricanes without telling me. And you're like, oh,
I thought
look who's coming.
I thought the Peppers were going to be at PNC.
I can't keep track, man. I can't keep track.
Geez.
I say this every summer. I'm going to go to more concerts. Oh, I'm really interested in seeing this show. I'm going to go to that. And then I look at the price, or I realize my couch seems really, really nice right now, and I'll just go ahead and watch, I don't know, Everybody's in LA with my guy, John Mulaney.
Looks like Walnut Creek.
You asked me about the Timberlake show. I was like, Timberlake's coming?
JT.
Things have come quickly for Justin Timberlake in the last 10 years. All right. Or whenever that show was.
Years. Yeah.
Was it 10 years when we went to that show?
That was the hotness.
Yeah, that was the 2020. That was like Justin Timberlake at the peak of his powers at that point.
Yeah.
Because he had put out Future Sex Love Sounds. The first half of the 2020 experience had come out. PNC was awesome for that show. Incredible for that show. I think when PNC Arena had its anniversary, I did like a top 5 sporting events that I've seen at PNC Arena.
Oh, Tim McGraw's going to be here.
No, thank you. And then I did like a top 5 like non-sports, most of it music. Now, SummerSlam 2000 was like number 1 for me.
Right. Shane McMahon off the scaffolding.
That's easily number 1. That Rage show that I went to, probably number 2. Metallica, I think it was 2019. That's probably number 3. But that Timberlake show was easily top 5. But that Timberlake show was as expensive as hell.
Yeah.
Timberlake has fallen off. His new album, I think the single came out. People went, this sucks. And we haven't heard from Timberlake since. How much are tickets going for right now?
You can get in for $37.
Wow.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
And maybe I don't understand concert hierarchy.
Okay.
In my brain, if you play PNC, you're on a little higher level than just playing Walnut Creek. Yes? No. Some people like doing arena shows. Some people like doing outdoor venues. Okay. That maybe that answers my question, because I'm sitting here thinking, aren't the Red Hot Chili Peppers bigger than Blink 182?
Well, who's playing where?
Blink is playing at the arena.
Yeah.
And Peppers are at outside.
It's all vibe. I've seen the Peppers at Walnut Creek. I think they came with Snoop Dogg several years ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
I mean, they were probably in the original.
Well, look, for instance,
second
I was not like, there are certain concerts that are they get to a point where they're too big for Red Hat, right? So like I saw Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Queens of the Stone Age not that long ago probably would have filled out PNC Arena. But they're kind of a little bit of a legacy act that's still putting out new music. And I went to Red Hat with Caleb, and I had a really good time. I enjoyed Queens of the Stone Age.
I love concerts there.
But then I was surprised. I went to go see Death Cab and Postal Service. And I was surprised that it was at Walnut Creek and not Red Hat, but it was nearly sold out. Also, last summer, I went to see Matchbox 20 on a whim with our friends Ian and Erica.
Yeah.
Thinking, it's just Matchbox 20 at the Creek.
Walnut.
And I was shocked how full it was. So it tells me like I'm just not in the mindset of like what's popular where and who should be at what venue.
So it's not just me.
It's not just you. I'm completely, my brain is fried when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like that guy Hosier came through.
I love Hosier.
I know him for one song. He took me to church that one time.
Yeah.
But apparently he's got a new song called Too Sweet.
Yes.
So I listened to it. It's pretty good. That was sold out at the Creek.
I believe it. He's awesome.
Because the Enlow bands, I have the volunteer thing to do the beer stand. So there are certain shows that even the parents want to go to them to work.
Oh.
Like the Foo Fighters show, right?
Okay, well.
I couldn't work the Foo Fighters show. Well, for a variety of reasons. One, the Canes. B, all the parents had filled it out.
August 27th, Bush is going to be at Red Hat. I don't want to come back down from this cloud.
That's
let's do it.
That's you want some 90s nostalgia?
Let's do it.
All right.
2 songs.
Got a machine head.
I got a better idea.
Yeah.
I got a better idea. Instead of paying the money, let's go to Crank Arm. We'll get a sip and stroll. We'll sit under the bridge. and we'll drink.
I'll just hear the chemicals between us wafting through the air as we.
I mean, it's only 2 songs, man.
Yeah,
come on.
I'm just surprised Bush never sold out. I give Bush a lot of credit. I give Gavin Ronsdale a lot of credit. They never sold out. It was right there for them. The glycerine, right? Oh, they could have easily sold to Listerine. Easily.
Yeah, there's still time.
You never know. You never know.
The Beatles never sold out either until
Nike threw the bag at the estate and we heard what was it? A John Lennon track, famously. Wow, we've gone full 5 minutes. We're clearly in off-season protocols, which does get us to.
I need a sounder for.
But Joe, ACC baseball, and I said, you know what? You're right. The Canes ending their season the way that they did easily transitions to the start of college baseball. I'm really looking forward to the start of college baseball. We got I'm sure Elliott's got some sort of diamond in the rough that's going to have a crazy season. Carolina's always good. Yeah, it's like that ECU guy, right? We're going to finally see that ECU guy play for NC State. I mean, I'm sure that Scott Forbes and the crew over at UNC, their bullpen's always money. Wake,
so good.
You know Wake's going to be strong. No, come on. They're just coming off. Wake is just coming off a College World Series appearance. So I am looking forward to the start of ACC baseball season after how last year went. So when do Carolina and State first play?
They've already played.
What do you mean they've played? Was it a preseason game?
You know, I love it when you're right.
Did the baseball season start?
It's here.
What?
Yeah.
When?
Yeah, Wake and their pitching lab got swept by.
When did it start?
The Wolfpack. One of the all-time great cons. My Deeks. I love my Deeks, but we have a pitching lab. As if go. You mean a TrackMan? Oh, wow. State got one of those too.
So is all jokes
and Carolina, I'm sure does too.
Is the Jamboree already this weekend?
Yes, that's where I was transitioning to.
Damn, man.
Your greatest, one of your greatest hits, the ACC baseball. It's not a tournament. The ACC baseball, it's not really a championship.
No.
The ACC baseball Jamboree is this week, and it's in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So it's safe for us to attend. My personal boycott of a certain building. I would hate for Elliott to win his first title at that particular building. So I plan on being in Charlotte on Sunday to see my guy.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll be at the pool.
Okay. Well, we all have our roles.
We've had a lot. Again, I'm being slightly over the top here with the ACC baseball thing. I'm sure people have picked up on that. We've gotten some responses, some emails, some tweets, some comments about hey, are you guys ever going to talk about baseball? And admittedly, the Canes have kind of swept up a lot of the conversation. And this is something that you said a long time ago as it relates to ACC baseball. I always felt that ACC baseball was having this moment. Now, I will admit that
when you have Carlos and Trey, you're going to have a moment.
It's not only that, but I was working for a company that was hosting the ACC baseball tournament, and it was in their best interest that you cared about the ACC baseball tournament. And I remember being in a meeting saying, all right, how are you going to be talking about ACC baseball this year? So there was a concerted effort to go around with that. But this also coincided with the Carolina Hurricanes going through a 10-year drought.
Yeah.
So when this team's not making the playoffs and you're looking for that next thing to talk about, it's last call at the bar in May, and you got to talk about something. Well, what are you going to talk about? Well, there's ACC baseball. They got some dudes. Elliot Avon's a character. Let's go. And it kind of had that moment. I do think that baseball has been shoved to the side again because of the Canes' success over the last 6 years.
Of course.
So,
and the portal and everything else that happens. Baseball's going through it just like the other sports are.
So we ended up getting some sports phone calls about the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's go ahead and transition over to the OG sports phone. You can call it at 919-444-2211. Here is sports phone call number 1.
What's up, Joe and Joe? This is Drew, walking back from the Times. Had lunch downtown. Hashtag sponsored, not really. But I just want to take a moment to shit on the Rangers and their fan base. I just hate them. I feel like it's a little more personal for me. I used to work parking at Phoenix Arena in my in-state days. They were the most toxic and most braiding fan base you can imagine there. $20 for parking! I was trying to think of a second worst fan base. It's just all Rangers. I couldn't comprehend a second worst team. But I think we win Game 6 tonight. Don't let them be ratty. Don't let them do stupid shit. Don't be smart on the power plays. People call Boston the rat team. I think that's because Marchand had some nice flags in Florida last night. But New York Rangers also New York sewer rats. You just need to put them down, step on their heads, crush them 4-1, and something like that, and we'll be fine. I'm a little stressed out. I think we got it, though. Go Canes. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah.
Like I said, I was clearing out the OG sports phone, and he's right. Had it been 4-1, the Canes would have won. He's like, yeah, beat them 4-1.
3-1.
It was. All they needed was that one more goal. That one more goal. They didn't get it. And, of course, the rest is history. And, yeah, I do think that what makes it difficult with Rangers fans is that they're not out of town. They're here. So it's like, it's kind of like how you were. In fact, I was at my parents' house yesterday, and my mom said, you know, I get that you guys are in podcast now, but I did not like it when Joe said, you know, they're out there sucking his dick. And I just thought that was too much. And I tried to explain to my mom that,
it's probably too much.
I'm like, no, you're right. She's like, I saw your face and I could tell. And then, you know, the other two guys, I'm like, oh, you mean Luke and Mike? He's like, yeah, I mean, they were just kind of embarrassed. I was like, that's typically what happens when the four of us get together anyway. Joe's going to say something and we're all going to go, oh, Joe. But there is something about the Rangers in particular that brings this out, as I've noticed now in the last 3 years, and they've seen the Rangers in 2 of the last 3 years. And you were kind of guilty with this.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Absolutely. I don't, but that's not about Rangers fans. That's about the media and how they treat the Rangers.
So there's something that's going on with New York and ESPN. It's funny. None of this happens in hockey because people don't view hockey the same way they do the NBA.
Yeah.
But the Knicks and the Pacers, Stephen A. Smith is essentially doing a pep rally for the Knicks before they get beat in Game 7 by the Pacers. And it was so over the top that even Dan Patrick called it out.
Yeah.
Like, look, not to say that we didn't have our fun, but there has to be some level of impartiality still. But clearly with Stephen A., you know, he's about the Knicks.
Blame Bill Simmons for all of that. So
a little bit.
No.
A little bit.
You can blame it all on him.
Yeah, I guess that's the case. Next sports phone.
Hey guys, it's Ben from Morrisville. Just got back from watching the Canes lose to the Ale House. And I mean, it's just a situation where, like, what did you expect when you went down 3-0 in the series? When you put yourself in that kind of hole, I mean, there's a reason why only 4 or 5 teams, I think it's 4 or 5 teams, have ever come back from that situation. And when you put yourself in that situation, you can't just expect to roar back to a Game 7. Definitely disheartening. There's going to be a lot of questions in the offseason. I think it starts at the top. I think a lot of Canes fans are kind of the immediate reaction is, can Rod get it done? I don't think you move on from Rod. I think he's the right guy for the vibe and the personality and the leadership in the locker room. But I think maybe you change some of the pieces around him. Maybe a new voice on the power play. You know, maybe a couple of, we're going to have unrestricted free agents, so maybe new guys on the ice around the core guys. I don't think it would be wise to move on from Rod, but, you know, again, maybe just tweak some of those pieces around him. Curious to know your thoughts. Thanks.
So again, we're clearing out the sports phone voicemail from over the weekend and from last week. And clearly, they did not make any changes to the coaching staff. Everybody got signed. Different, I think it's a different structure for the assistants. I've seen some reports that the assistants got 2 years plus 1 on the option. Not sure with Rod. My understanding with Rod Brind'Amour, and it's been reported elsewhere, but my understanding is there's a 5-year deal for Rod Brind'Amour. It's also my understanding that the reason why the Canes just won't put that out is because Rod doesn't want it out. So that's kind of why, you know, there's some mystery of what's going on with the contract.
And he doesn't have an agent, so
there's that too. So you're not going to get it. I think Kevin Weeks is actually his agent.
Could be.
he's the spokesman for Rod Brind'Amour. No, but to that question, there's a reason why I asked Rod Brind'Amour about the coaching staff. Because yes, there's a little bit of footballification in that. All right, well, this particular part of our game isn't working, so let's go get a new coordinator.
Yeah.
But Rod didn't view it that way. I get a sense that maybe Tom Dundon might have wanted it that way, but
AKA Business Tom,
which we'll get to with this last sports phone call.
Joe, when we go talk about the real off-season move, the price increase for Storm Brews in parking, I'm going to hang up and listen.
So,
man, parking was starchy, wasn't it?
It really
50?
was. As we were getting ready to talk to Don Waddell, we were walking back to the Wolfpack room where we set up when we do something at PNC Arena. I did joke with him. I'm like, hey, man, if you could be charging me $50 to park, Well, not me, but Kelly and Jacob.
I might need a rub and a tug while we're at it for $50, man.
Do you want my mom to listen to the podcast or not? No. So I said to him, like, hey, if I'm paying $50 for parking, I better see some renovations ASAP. Like, why am I paying all this money if I ain't seeing no renovations, man? He kind of laughed it off. But obviously, we talked about it on that podcast, which, yes, that's a wonderful transition to get us to business, Tom. Speaking of transitions, as we are talking about hockey.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
Big thanks to Happy and Hale for sponsoring our hockey conversations. Go check out the Burnsy Bowl, which is still going strong over at Happy and Hale. Even if the Canes are out, the Burnsy Bowl still getting it done. Or if you need to just kind of detoxify from all of the tailgating that you did, a smoothie might do you some good. I'm a big fan of the green smoothie over at Happy and Hale. Locations across the triangle. You got one in North Hills. That's our home base. There's one off of Six Forks and, of course, in Durham as well. And when the cane season is back, you can check out the cart. So, again, big thanks to Happy and Hale. Business, Tom. I received some feedback from our conversation with Rod Brindamore yesterday, and the consensus was, wow, Rod was pretty damn candid with you all. Mm-hmm. I go, yes, I think he tends to ease up in that setting, and we have good, honest conversations with him. And when I started the conversation about the contract, I did kind of float out the, hey, you know, how did you feel about this spilling over into the national media consciousness? And the way Rod talked about it does get us into the idea of business, Tom Dundon.
There was a few little heated moments on this whole thing.
Okay.
But end of the day, we're here. I never thought I'd be coaching. And then I got into it, and and it sounds silly, but it's because of the guys I'm around. Mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, well, I'm a coach now. I've been doing this for a while, so that's kind of how I'm seen. And I have opportunity. I could go and coach somewhere else, but that doesn't even, like, that's not what I'm about. Like, I'm about being here with these guys, and I'm going to run this out as long as I can. Yeah. I really feel like that's how it was from day one when I took the job. Whenever it ended, I'd be doing something else. But thankfully, we didn't have to get to where I think a situation would have been, that might have been enticing, if you know what I mean. So we were able to head that off. We had a little hiccup at the end, and that's when people caught wind of it and kind of made it a little bigger than it was. And it actually probably helped, though, in a way, because then all of a sudden we took care of it. So, sometimes it works in your favor when stuff gets out, I guess. I don't know.
So that was with Rod. The full conversation in yesterday's podcast, if you missed it, I also put the full conversation on YouTube. If you don't want to watch any of our other inane babbling about things, it's out there. But then that part of it with Tom Dundon also kind of spilled over with how we talked about the roster. And Rod was very, very clear about how he'd love to bring everybody back. But that sounds like a coach. He likes this group. Loves this group, would love to bring everybody back, but the financials, as we talked about with Don Waddell, it's not gonna work out to be able to bring everybody back. And that's when Rod had brought up business, Tom, and how he goes about these types of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of business to tend to.
Did you find your sheet?
I found the original sheet.
Okay.
Yes. And now I've gone to a color-coded sheet with the lines.
Look at you.
I thought one of the most interesting things that Don Waddell said yesterday was that both Seth Jarvis and Marty Necas would be back. Mm-hmm. I've been a fairly strong proponent of Marty Necas because he's so intoxicating particularly when you see him in overtime, and particularly when you see him
talking about his Instagram post.
In the regular season. You're like, man, he can skate. He has a different skill level than anyone else on this roster. But ultimately, you have to produce when the money's on the table. And I get it. He's still young. So I can understand why they had the bridge deal. I thought they played the bridge deal perfectly last time. Mm-hmm. I do not suggest a bridge deal with Seth Jarvis, as we talked about in the interview. They're gonna have a hard time because
I got that clip.
They're gonna have a hard time with that one because they're basically slobbering over him, and as they should. Mm-hmm. That's their little diamond in the rough. Even though he's a first round pick, it's still a little bit. You get him a little bit further down the board, and you're like, oh boy, we hit the lottery with this one. I was surprised to hear that type of commitment to Necas, because if you look at it, like let's go back to the dark days of Game 5. And the Rangers are up 1-0. And I'm driving down here to the studio to do the show. And I'm sitting here thinking in my head, like, when which player for the Hurricanes gets on the ice, like the Rangers, where you're like, oh shit, Zibanejad is on the ice. Oh man, Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere. You're like, okay, these are all high-end skill guys who could score at any minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are those players for the Canes? Fishy is more of a facilitator than a scorer, but I still think his line is capable. Whatever line he's going to be on is going to be capable of scoring, right? So when he's on the ice, you're on high alert. Jarvis, when he's on the ice, high alert. Who else gives you that alarm bell? In my head, I've got Kuznetsov just because of the raw ability there. Nason's a plumber, right? You need plumbers.
You do, but at what cost? He's going to get, because we were talking about this before. They could have another Brock McGinn situation on their hands.
There's a lot of pausing there, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, sure.
Whereas that Ranger high end skill, you're like, oh yeah, yep, I can see it. Yep. So what happens in that third period is Jordan Staal has a great moment, and then you see Martinook score, and you're like, oh look, this is the Canes 1 through 20, right? So for me, I go through this list and I go, well, those are the guys you want on your team.
Yeah.
But you can only afford so many of them if you don't draft them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Jarvis, you drafted. Svechnikov, you drafted. Aho, you drafted. That Gensel spot is where I look at it and I go, okay, and this is what they tried with Pacioretty, with Bunting. They've tried with that spot. They pay that spot. They try with that spot. So that's the spot I look at and I go, okay, let's see what you can come up with. As Don said yesterday, we have a different value system. It's puck possession. It's ice time. Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Here's Waddell when we were talking about the differences between, Tom Dundon, business Tom XYZ. And I straight up said, like, at this point, we kind of know what you're getting with Tom Dundon. At this point, there's no surprises with Tom Dundon and how he negotiates, right?
Tom gets a little bit of a bad rap there. I mean, the thing about it is we always talk about what's fair. And sometimes players don't think we're fair. We use analytics a lot when it comes to, ice time, possession time, all that, more than what anybody's ever done probably. And so, agents are typically, all they're looking at is other players that play those positions and get equal amount of points, maybe, their comps and that. So it's all part of trying to get deals done. You get everybody's opinion in the group, including Tom's, of course, and then you just go to work from there.
With Seth, just to go back, I wrote this down and I just told Rod, I cried when I saw Chris Kreider's contract and what he was making. Doesn't it just make a whole bunch of sense to lock Seth up now and have somebody here in 6 years being like, they're paying Seth Jarvis what?
If the numbers right and they're willing, I think the long-term deal makes a lot of sense, whether it's, like I said, 7-8 years. You get a player, he's played 3 years. Let's say you do a six-year deal, call it a 6-year deal, and he's here 9 years. Very good chance he's staying here after that too.
Yeah,
you're fair with him, and then you're paying him through his prime.
So again, that was a snippet from Don Waddell, president, general manager. That's full conversation on yesterday's podcast. If you missed it,
we got a text from our friend Hayes Permar who was like, "Wow, Giglio on the analysis there with Kreider being the difference."
Yeah,
in the third period,
the guy who scored the hat trick in the third period.
I do enjoy the obvious though, and Don being like, basically we've offered him a 6-year deal. That was what I translated that to, but he's right. I mean, Jarvis made $894 this year.
Yeah, man.
Now all of a sudden you're talking about giving him a 6-year deal in the $7 million range would be my guess.
Yeah,
right.
Yes. So, and it'll make sense in the grand. Like they thought that would. I think. Look, we'll put a bow on this. When it comes to the Canes, I have no problems. I don't subscribe to the man. I wish we can bring this entire group back. No, don't, because clearly the group is good enough in the regular season, good enough to be in the position to win the President's Trophy, win the division. Blah 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 blah. But they're clearly missing something. Once we get to the postseason, as Luke DeCock says, you're built to beat bad teams or teams on your level. But once you get into that rare air of the playoffs, well, everybody's good now. All the goalies are good. The high end is a difference maker. So if you can shed some of the dead weight, I'm looking at Kotkaniemi as a key ingredient to this, but you might be stuck with him. Right. Those are things where not everything they touch is gold. Okay.
Right. I think
Kotkaniemi is a prime example of that. We were talking about Brent Burns and Dmitry Orlov, who got old real quick.
I think Kotkaniemi, Burns, and Orlov, they're going to have to, and even Freddie, maybe even this year, if they could get out of one of those deals, I think that would be huge. I think that would be good for them. Huge. But, I got 5 circles here on my card of who I think they'll not bring, who I don't think they'll be able to bring back. I got Gensel, Teravainen, and Nason, Shea, and Pesci.
And that's fine. That's fine.
I think you would have wanted one or the other with Shea or Pesci. Did you catch what I said with Don, like logically? And he was like, yeah, logically, you're right.
Yeah.
But I think what he was saying was they wanted to play it out, even if it meant the Canes would have to pay them more, not necessarily somebody else. But obviously, they wanted to get to market, as is every player's right, particularly when they get to their 30th birthday. I mean,
I don't blame them.
You can't blame them.
I don't blame them one bit.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Inovana for sponsoring Housekeeping. They did not come into the house today. Next Tuesday, okay?
I think you just keep the bit going. Just be like, oh yeah, they were there today, man. They were.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Inovana.
Although honestly, I could use them on a once a week basis at this point because the kids continue to they're disgusting, absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go back to their side of the house because it just reeks. I go back there and like Hale, he's got like a dorm, dude. He's got like soda cans piled up like they were beer cans in the back of a dorm.
Yeah.
Like, I see you've made a design out of the Costco pack of Fanta, Sprite, and Coke Cherry. Got it. Anyway, check them out online, Inovana.com, ENOVANA.com. Green cleaning solutions. You can get a one-time cleaning. You can do a recurring cleaning like me. It all works out. Want to highlight the Sports Podcast Festival. Tickets are going to go on sale May 25th. We're going to have Shutdown Fullcast as the headliner, Hand in the Dirt in the house, and of course us. We'll see what fun and frivolity we will have. I mean, obviously, the Hand in the Dirt and Shutdown Fullcast are going to be a lot of fun and be their special selves. I don't know. Can we convince Debbie Yao to show up?
Yeah.
To the Sports Pod Fest?
Yeah.
All right. We'll make that happen. Also, I want to highlight people to breakingt.com/OG. Okay. People, I was on TV the other day. People like, oh, the Dead Conference shirt was making the rounds. I go, yes, go buy one.
Please.
Go buy a t-shirt. Go to breakingt.com/OG to check that out. Big thanks to Breeze Through. Hit the Breeze Through on my way out from PNC Arena yesterday. Got some more coffee, got some gas, ran the pilot through the car wash, which was necessary. All the things that you could do right outside PNC Arena.
I didn't even know they had a car wash over there.
It's sneaky.
Yeah, it's in the back there.
Yeah, it's also it's the Adam Memorial. I run the Ethernet cable through the car wash to get to the front of the Breeze Through so that we could do a show.
Oh, nice.
That's how long that Ethernet cord is, man. It's nuts.
in my garage right now.
I'm looking forward to doing another cold post game sometime at PNC Arena / Carter Finley, like we did that one time.
Football season will be here before you know it.
Yeah, before you know it, man. Before you know it. Which means you have all the time in the world this summer to hit up Nature's Relief and just chill.
Relax.
Just take one of those nowadays before you go to one of these shows that we were talking about. So go to Nature's Relief hempstore.com.
I need to be able to listen.
No, you'll hear it.
I can process it. I just can't speak.
Buddy, you're going to hear colors. Okay. So Nature's Relief Hemp Store, RELEAF, hempstore.com. We thank them for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio, as we do with Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out online. WH.lawyer, attorneys and counselors at law. They can handle all sorts of legal needs for you. They got locations across the triangle. Again, that's WH.lawyer. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Hotline is our friend from the Louisville Courier-Journal. He is CL Brown. CL, what's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? Always a pleasure to be on.
I texted you when I finally put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh yeah, this golf tournament's in Louisville, and some shit went down.
Joe Ovius, journalist.
I was like, whoa, mind blown. I'm like, oh, and some shit went down with Scotty Scheffler, and I think your response to me was, man, this is too much. So from your perspective, how did this did things eventually calm down from what happened on Friday to the eventual the Dan Marino of the PGA finally getting it done in Xander Schauffele?
Yeah, it really probably by the end of the day, Friday, it had calmed down. I mean, there was still just a bit of shock over what all transpired. And, throughout the final round Sunday, there were still people yelling "Free Scotty," and you would see people get T-shirts made quick, man. That's the one thing I discovered about Friday. Like, it happened roughly 6 o'clock in the morning when he was arrested, and he was back on the course. I think his tee time had been moved back to like 10, so I think he got back up there at 9. And by the first hole he was on, I didn't see any with his actual mugshot that early. That came later. But yeah, Free Scotty T-shirts. A lot of people supported him throughout that I don't know, bizarre happening.
I'm just happy that we're able to joke about it and that it turned out the way that it did.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're not that far removed from Breonna Taylor and the pandemic and all these other, very real issues. And I just feel like I'm glad that we can joke about it, but it does feel like CL, we're missing a little bit of the serious side of this. Like,
$80 pants is very serious. Come on.
No, I know. And I'm not trying to bring us all down, but it's just kind of like, man, this could have been. I mean, part of my brain goes, well, thank God it wasn't Tiger Woods and it wasn't Sahith Theegala.
See, I feel like the underlying theme of this is where golf is, because there's the number one player in the world who is not recognizable. I think if it was Tiger Woods, this would have turned out totally different. They would have actually been like,
oh, we know you.
Sorry, Mr. Woods, we're trying to control traffic here. If you give us like 5 minutes, we'll let you through. I think it would have been something like that. But because they didn't know, they didn't recognize who he was, they were still asking people after he was handcuffed in the back of the patrol car, who is this guy we got? But my thing with it too, and I didn't understand why somebody above the arresting officer, just like common sense didn't come into play and cooler heads prevailed. Like, you're in front of Valhalla Golf Club. You know exactly why he is going. He's in a marked car, PGA Tour car, courtesy vehicle, whatever, that's marked for the players. He shows his credentials. Like, I mean, I wasn't there when it happened. I wasn't sitting there observing everything, so I can't tell you fully. But from Scotty Scheffler's side, one officer told him to do one thing, and then the one who ended up trying to stop his car didn't get that memo that the other officer told him he could go around. So, and I feel like this happens to regular people, everywhere in dealing with police sometimes. Like, there's some miscommunication, which you would think that would be recognized. And, oh, somebody else told you to do this? Okay, well, look, the next time an officer is telling you to stop, you got to stop, buddy. Like, all of that should have happened right then and there in front of the entrance to Valhalla. It never should have escalated to him actually taking the ride downtown and suiting up in the orange jumpsuit and everything. I mean, it's a terrible look for the LMPD, which, after the Breonna Taylor shooting, still the Department of Justice did a scathing study on the department. It's embarrassing a bit for the city.
All right, to transition away from the golf to the other obsession that takes place in your neck of the woods, and that's basketball. And I feel like Louisville and Kentucky are now going through the same kind of, in a different way.
Oh, the red and blue. Yes.
In a different way.
Oh, yes.
But still similar to what Carolina and Duke, and obviously what we see with NC State. But it's a whole new era. And I don't think anybody understands or can process right now whether, what the Mark Pope era is going to be like.
CL can. He was here for the Sidney Lowe era.
Or the Kel.
He knows what this hire is for Kentucky.
And I don't want to say that, but look, CL, man, when I saw that clip of them showing up in the bus with the championship team, Joe just said it. I'm like, I've seen this before. Like, your 8th choice gets the job and you're already playing to the older fan base because none of the kids today were born when that thing happened. it's eye-opening in Kentucky, man.
Well, I do think Mark Pope has a chance. I don't. I'm not going to put him in that Sidney Lowe category yet because
easier for me to say it from here. I get you, man. I feel you.
But he's
those phone calls.
He's been a college coach before.
Yes.
That's being the major difference. Like he's been in the game, and he's going to get obviously access to better athletes than he ever had at Utah Valley or at BYU, and he's innovative, like offensively. No, well, you got to get what you can get right now. You got to get what you can get. Like he didn't get hired early enough to get anybody else.
I've got an all-time great Matt Rule instant take that was right, and mark this down. This is going to be the same way, man. Like this poor bastard, and it's Kentucky. It's not NC State.
No,
he will get 2 years maximum, before they finally go to Day Notes and be like, "Hey, man."
Especially if Pat Kelsey gets Louisville back. Rolling.
Yeah, we can go to the positive side because I do think they made a nice hire in Pat Kelsey, and I know they had offered the Drew brother from Baylor a part of the deal with the contract was here's our NIL package as well, and I think you're seeing that pay off immediately for Pat Kelsey in Louisville.
Yeah, they've been players in the game. Although what's the guy from Utah State? Great. I forgot his last name. Osborne. Yeah. I mean, this reported $2 million package that he had, because Louisville was in the mix for him, but they're not giving $2 million to a guy like that.
Well, speaking of the portal, I saw this making the rounds. Again, it's off-season protocols. I'm not going to knock Field of 68 for asking the question, whose roster are you taking right now, Carolina or Duke? And I'm thinking to myself, well, one, Carolina's roster is not complete, which is its own separate conversation about missing out on a guy to replace Armando Bacot. And then over at Duke, I feel like they're actually adding the pieces around the one singular star, and that would be Cooper Flagg. So it's an easy answer for me. It's Duke, but that transitions to the question specifically about Carolina. From afar and missing out on potential guys. We saw Duke miss out on some guys in the portal. It seems that Hubert's struggling with this right now. To complete that roster, they got some pieces coming back, but they still need to replace somebody like Armando Bacot.
Well, I think first, what's funny to me now is it used to be kind of if you lost the kid in a quote unquote recruiting battle, you were really questioning the staff and the relationships they build and what's going on over there. Now it's like I guess they weren't paying enough. Like it's like they're been either somebody just overbid and is overpaying for a player, or you're not paying enough. Like it's funny how it no longer matters in recruiting how charismatic you are, what your facilities look like, and the whole nine. But my thing with Carolina and missing out on some of these big men for depth is I kind of wonder what is this saying about Jalen Washington, because I feel like this guy has the skills to be a star player. And I don't know, their pursuit of some other big men, especially someone like Coleman Hawkins, who it seems like he's going to stay in the draft anyway from Illinois. But I almost feel like they've been going after guys who might compete with him and could overtake him in the lineup. And so I'm like, he has stuck through 2 years. Maybe there's something that we don't know about him that they don't feel comfortable with. But I feel like he should be the guy this year on the interior for Carolina.
That's a little bit of old school Carolina too. Let's see the jump the guy can make from his second year to his third year. It's kind of interesting though. And the way that Louisville does it, CL, they have a GM now.
You know what? I don't know if technically they're calling it that. But yeah,
they have somebody.
Well,
yeah.
One of the conversations I had during the NCAA tournament with Kevin Keats was like, hey, right now the number one thing we need to improve upon is you go to, when Duke brings in a transfer, they offer them specifically because they have a GM. They basically know their salary structure and say, here's what we can do. Yeah. And he's like, we're kind of guessing over here a little bit, Like, because the coaching staff's not supposed to be involved, right? Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, he was like saying to me, like, that's the number one thing we need to improve is our infrastructure. So I was just kind of curious, because the way I kind of understand it at Carolina, there's a little bit, they're a little loose on their infrastructure as well. It seems like Duke and potentially Louisville are ahead of the game. In that
Duke
way.
jumped on it immediately, understanding where things were. I guess there's a little hubris, maybe.
At the other places.
At the other places? Could that, I mean, look, we see this.
It's kind of like what CL said. Like, well, we're charismatic, or we're Hall of Famers, or we're at this particular school. So
because
what do we
Carolina CL, I mean, look, man. I mean, you know this. It's not a money thing at Carolina. They got money.
Yeah.
That's. I mean,
I thought Carolina, when they went and got TJ Beisner from Kentucky, which the Kentucky people they were up in arms about that. I thought that was gonna help their infrastructure, or at least was a note that, hey, we got to get in this game and we have to do it a certain way. But I don't know, I don't know since then how it all has shaken out over there and what role he's actually allowed to play. But I do think less than a hubris angle. I think some people are just late to change, and late to figure out how fast these wheels are turning. It's better, I feel like, to be in that camp than to be in the, like, say, Dabo Swinney camp, who's just like blinders on and defiant. I'm going to do it this way, and it's going to be the way that
these guys aren't good enough to play for us.
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's like all transfers when you're coming from high school to college. Those are all transfers, right?
Those are all transfers.
Hey, look, name, image, and likeness. We're doing it for his name, image.
That's right.
No, it is interesting. We're going to talk to David Hale from ESPN about this, because I always tab him as the Dabo whisperer. But it is interesting to me that Clemson is trying to position itself as though, no, we got to leave the ACC. We need XYZ. We got to compete with the SEC. No, the thing that's holding you back isn't the amount of money that's coming from your television package. What's holding you back is a coach that refuses to play the game. And that's kind of where we are right now. CL, we appreciate the time as always. Good to talk a little hoops in May. We will talk to you later, man.
All right. Have a good one, fellas.
Look at you rocking that Rhoback polo today.
This is the land of the sky. Land of the sky. I think this was our friends at Rhoback trolling me. This is their Duke version of the state of North Carolina shirt. They have the Hillsborough, which is the state, and they have the North State, which is the Carolina one in the corresponding colors. What they don't know, though, is this is my favorite color.
You know what's funny, though, is they were trolling you with a Duke color. There needs to be like little double birds.
Yeah, there should be hidden.
Yeah, little like, yeah. If you, it's like those old. What were those things? The magic eye posters.
Yeah.
That if I stare at it long enough,
schooner.
If I stare at it long enough,
it's Kyrie Irving.
Stare into Joe's moobs. You'll eventually see double birds. So go to rhoback.com. RHOBACK.com.
Now who's making sure that Dilly doesn't watch the show?
I mean, it takes some to know some, Joe. Anyway. I'm built like my grandfather on my mom's side, so it is what it is. Go to rhoback.com, use that promo code OG20, and you can save 20% off your order. Speaking of saving money, you want to save money on your home and auto. That's why you contact Matt Davis over at State Farm. InsureGardner.com, TheOGInsurance.com, or call directly at 919-779-8277. With Matt Davis, we'll make sure that we talk about market inefficiencies a lot.
You want to save money?
That might come up with David Hale. Hey, there you go. That's where you can save money. And as we continue to save you money, you can bundle and save with Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Bugsbite.com. Jacob turned 13 over the weekend. He had some buddies over. We were outside in the patio. Everybody was good. You know why? Mosquito Authority. And I'm going to take credit for every Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority sign that I see. They must be podcast listeners. So check them out, bugsbite.com. Again, that's bugsbite.com. Joining us on the Heaster Automotive Group hotline with his Himalayan sea salt, Florida sea scrub. I mean, you have a glow about you, David Hale. David Hale, ESPN, joining us now.
Thank you. I just want to note this for the record. I stored this in my calendar, my phone, as show with Obvious. I didn't mention the other Joe in my phone, so I knew you'd be here, but it's still like it's a little.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's like that, now. This must be what the board of trustees at UNC felt like with Florida State getting all the action, Clemson getting. They're like, wait a minute, we're here too.
This is, yeah. You gotta bring up your game, okay? You gotta do something to get the headlines, because until those headlines come, you're mean in this world of pure branding and the attention economy. That's where it goes.
So you were at the ACC meetings last week in Amelia Island, Florida, and it just so happened that it coincided with the board of trustees catching a wild hair and saying like, hey, don't forget about us. But things at Carolina are different. Bubba Cunningham, the AD at Carolina, has actually spoken openly about how he didn't like how Florida State and Clemson have handled their, specifically Florida State. And they almost like they were coming at him, and then it backed off last week. There are some legal things that are going on that relate to Robert's Rules of Order and open meetings rules, and all that might have affected what happened last Thursday. But from your perspective, and talking with Bubba Cunningham and talking to other people, what exactly happened last week at UNC that fizzled out the way that they did?
Well, for one, I think, the obvious first point is I think some folks wanted some headlines, as we alluded to. And trying to figure out like the best way of putting it. I think there's a two-part aspect to this. One, to your point, things are different at Carolina for myriad reasons, but I think number one is Carolina doesn't need to do this. Like, it's not impacting their competitive level in the short term. And in the long term, they get to go wherever they want. Like, let Florida State and Clemson blaze the trail and they'll march right out. Like, it doesn't behoove you to try to be the first in here, even though the first will get more headlines. So that's one. The flip side of that is I don't think anything would have been said if this wasn't a very real possibility, almost I would say likelihood in the long term. So if you're the ACC, you should not be viewing this as like a couple of guys at a board meeting spouting off. Like, this is probably going to happen eventually. I mean, we can all argue about when eventually is, but like, this is my real struggle with how Jim Phillips, at least publicly, is discussing all of these things as if the entire house is not on fire right now. Like, it's on fire.
This is fine dog right now. That's what
yes. And look, maybe there's a way. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think there's really only two options that are open to Jim Phillips and the ACC in trying to approach this. And one, I think it's foolish to be looking at how do we preserve the ACC till 2036. Like, I don't know that college football is being preserved until 2036 under its current models by any stretch. I think you need to say, like, what is our window to get us to like 2030? 2031 maybe, as the next round of TV contracts come due. So I think you have one of two things. Either one, be figuring out how to get the absolute most money out of Clemson and Florida State so as to scare off other teams who might be interested in doing this, and to give a bunch of money to, that money that they'll have to pay to leave goes to the right people to get them to stay, so that you at least keep what is left of this league for as long as you can. Or you go to your BCs and Syracuses of the world and say, I'm sorry, but if you want this league to live for another couple of years, we got to redo revenue streaming, and we got to make sure that Florida State and Clemson are happy, at least get us to 2030. Figure out a Band-Aid, a bridge that gets us there. Because I don't know what other options there are. Like, I don't think there is. So that's a long tangent based off of a very minor thing that the Board of Trustees said. I think what actually happened is a few people thought they had a little more support for something than they actually did. And after it was public, they realized, not everybody's got my back here. Where'd everybody go? And so it all backed off a little bit. Look, there's a lot of politics involved there, not surprisingly. I mean, that's certainly true at Florida State. The politics all just aligned on the same side. I don't think that's the case here. And as much as I think that you referenced the comments that Bubba Cunningham had about Florida State and how they were doing things. That's part of Bubba's problem here, and I'm sure he wishes he could walk that back a little bit, because I don't think look, Bubba's not ignorant to what's happening here.
No.
Okay, like he is making sure that Carolina is well positioned too. But because of those comments, he almost became the face of defending the ACC, which is not what he wants to be either. But dude's been at North Carolina for a long, long time, and you don't have that job for as long as you have it without having a few friends. And so I think, yes, people misjudged how much support he has.
One thing I'll add before we move on to something else, or Joe wants to follow up about Bubba Cunningham specifically. I think Bubba, you're right. He kind of inadvertently positioned himself as the defender of the ACC, but I think that's the wrong interpretation. I think Bubba sees the even bigger picture that you're referencing, that college football is not going to look like this in 2036 or even by 2030. So how do you get there? There's a reason why Bubba is part of this think tank that presents things like the college football super conferences and those 8 weird divisions that are more regionally aligned. Bubba's a part of that stuff. Bubba's way more connected than just a simple AD at North Carolina. So in a way, I almost feel like the Board of Trustees should understand, yeah, I see what you're going with Florida State, who are thinking short term right now. Bubba's thinking big picture, which is where everybody should be right now.
Yeah. One of the things Bubba said to me, this was a while back, so not in relation to this at all, but I sort of posed this question, like, if the whole model's about to blow up, why are schools like bending over backwards to write giant checks to get out of a conference that may or may not even exist in 5 years anyway? And his answer to me was that, I hope this wasn't off the record. I'm just saying it. But anyway, here we go. His answer to me was that we don't work in an industry run by logic. We work in an industry run by emotion. And I think that's 100% accurate. And Bubba is working logically. And I think what happened at that meeting was driven emotionally.
Understanding who your employer is and without giving away any trade secrets from your reporting in the schools that you talk to and the different ADs and the different sources that you have, what is the sense of what ESPN is going to do with their option? I think that's the most interesting thing that came out of Florida State's lawsuit, in my opinion. And I hear you say 2030, but if ESPN decides,
they're not.
What is your sense of where that option is?
I thought the way that Jim Phillips answered the question, very little of what Jim Phillips said in Amelia Island was telling in my mind. It was as vanilla as it could be. I thought his answer to that was probably the most interesting, in which his almost like perfunctory, immediate response was like, it's going to be fine. And that's largely what I've heard too. And I think, look, this is to some degree, a leverage play for Clemson and Florida State. Like, this is their best card, is that like you have a much better chance of this being picked up if we are members of the league than if not. And if it's not going to be picked up, you need us, like, we can walk. So you've got to figure something out to make all of this work. Here's the thing though, is that it's more than just who the teams are. Like, obviously who the teams are matters, but there's a lot of content space that needs to be filled. And it's, when Texas and Oklahoma decided they were leaving the Big 12, and everybody was like, oh, well, that's the end of the Big 12. And it certainly could have been if the cards weren't played the way that they were. But it also sort of ignored that while no one left in the Big 12 has the cachet of Texas and Oklahoma, there is still a lot of people who watched Big 12 football that weren't Texas and Oklahoma, and that has some value, which in this media market, ESPN is not, they've already planned for this money to be spent. So this is not like, should we invest in the ACC now? Like, the stock's bought. Mm-hmm. And there would be losses incurred by shutting down ACC Network or whatever else. And B, I think there is not nearly as much money in the media landscape as Florida State fans would like you to believe, but this is still a relatively good deal for ESPN with or without Florida State and Clemson. So my guess is, if I had to put money on one side or the other, that this will get picked up and it will get done. To be blunt, what I have heard is that the bigger sticking point is less who's in the conference and going to be broadcast on these games, as there is still some not great feelings about adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU, despite ESPN not particularly being enthusiastic about that addition. So to me, this is as much a relationship as a content conversation right now.
Yeah, the smart play, it's the old, again, I'm editorializing here, but I mean, that's what we do on this podcast. The smart play would have been the old 80s movie War Games. The best way to win is to not play. And either you're going to be you're either going to be an aggressor and you're going to completely reshape college athletics the way that John Swofford tried to do 20 years ago. And in this particular case, you go out and you go get the best parts of the Pac-12, or you truly do form the alliance, or you don't do anything at all. To your point, you're bringing in people that you're just going, why are you here? Like, what are we adding here?
Bryce and DeChambeau.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly it. But this gets to, and we'll close on this, David. This gets to the competitive aspect of it.
If you could just say that last part again, because I've had people be like, "Oh, you're just making this up." Say it again, please. ESPN wasn't thrilled with the additions of Stanford, Cal, and SMU. And
why would they be? They were on the hook to have to pay the same amount for those schools as they're paying for everybody else. They didn't want those schools, and to prove how little value those schools have, the schools didn't even take the money. So, I mean, it's just like logic dictates that this was not a move. Like, there's some upside for ESPN in getting an extra window of games, ACC games or whatever, but like that moves the needle so little in comparison to the $120-ish million that you're going to have to shell out per year to add these teams into the league. It just, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to run the math on that.
No. What a mind trick that Big 12 thing was, by the way. You said it. You lose Texas and Oklahoma. You bring nothing in that is commensurate to that, but you bought they're the Carolina Hurricanes. They didn't get a superstar. They got a bunch of other good players, though, that you're like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of interested in Arizona. Kind of like, Utah. I don't even know who the hell's in the league anymore, but it's like they
got Coach Prime now. That's all it is, man. That's ratings, baby.
And they already added BYU, so like it was one of these moves where you're like, this is a total Jedi mind trick what they just pulled off.
It worked out. They know
and to be look, the ACC is in a bad place because of the lawsuits right now, but it was amazing, like even before that happened, that the vibe shift that was like, oh, the Big 12 has got it made. They got it all figured out. Why can't the ACC figure it out? I'm like, there's not a single team from the Big 12 that helps the ACC today.
None. But
West Virginia.
No,
I'm a sucker for West Virginia.
You're a sucker for West
Virginia.
Well,
and I think that, frankly, the ACC probably should have moved in that direction a long time ago.
I would rather have West Virginia, Connecticut, and Cincinnati or Memphis than what they.
Yeah,
added.
That's true. But all this is all silly talk, and we'll close on this because I like to position you as the Dabo whisperer at Clemson. And I'm sure Dabo doesn't like that, but it is what it is. That's the role I've assigned to you. And we can sit here.
He has a role. I don't even have a role.
That's a good point. He's on with me today, Joe, not you. So,
Joe, when did you get here?
Hey,
thought I heard a different voice.
So we can sit here and obsess over money and competitiveness. How can we compete? All this other crap. Fine, I get it. But when your head coach, who's won 2 national championships, is openly telling you, "Yeah, man, we ain't about this transfer stuff." How do you think it's going to go in the SEC? Are you going to be like the lone white hat in a black hat cowboy town? Like, I don't understand.
According to Brian Kelly, they don't pay players at LSU.
Yeah, right. Brian Kelly. No, we're here to develop. Like, no, man, you're at LSU.
Let's have a race for the stupidest offseason comment by a college football coach.
I want to like Dabo, but Dabo says things that make me go, your problem isn't money. Your problem is your head coach doesn't want to evolve. So what exactly is going on here?
Yeah, so I have, to your point, or to your moniker that you have assigned to me, unfortunately, I have given way too much thought to this. Like, at some point, I should have been like raising my children instead of been like, why is Dad thinking about this? It's not healthy. I think there's a few things going on. One, like, Dabo is a traditionalist. Like, we can't get past that. But I don't think he is averse to the notion of the portal. But he is sort of like, I'm trying to think of like a good analogy here. But the one I've been using is like, he wants to buy a new car. And his thought is, if I'm going to buy this, it has to be a Porsche or a BMW. And I'm not going to pay more than $1. And it's like, okay, you're in the market for a car, technically, but that deal is never going to come together. No. And part of the problem, I don't think the problem is that he doesn't see value in certain transfers. I think the bigger issue is that he overvalues the players that are already on his roster. And that's what he'll say again and again and again is there's not somebody that's better than XYZ. And my point would be like, yeah, there is. Like, there's some guys who've done it. And even if they're not better, like that quarterback room this year, I think would benefit from like a senior veteran Max Johnson type quarterback who, like, he doesn't necessarily need to start, but Kate Klubnik has been struggling doing this on his own. The wide receiver room for the last 3 years has desperately needed a veteran wide receiver. The O-line, particularly interior O-line, has desperately needed another veteran body in there. They don't need to be All-American types, but he's basically positioned himself as I want an All-American, and I'm not going to pay somebody who's not played here already a bunch of money. And in fact, this didn't get any. I don't even know what he said. I didn't listen to the whole Sirius XM interview. I talked to him for quite some time, and he said, "Look, we've not given a dime in recruiting and NIL money." Now, that's not to say that somebody else hasn't come in, but he says we have not paid any recruits to come in and play here. Like, that's a bigger problem if you're going to go to the SEC. If you are not going to bother using NIL on freshmen, like, that's going to be a problem. So, look, I do think
the kid from Wake Forest didn't go there for free. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well,
they had 4 NFL defensive linemen drafted and still couldn't get them. And you think, by the grace of God, decided to go to Clemson.
Here's the slide.
Get out.
Look, I think
slide, Joe, is the slide.
Get out.
The slide is nice. I think there's a couple. Like, one, he's probably not wrong in saying that, like, high school players are probably a better market value today than the transfer portal is. Like, I don't think he's wrong in saying that. There's a market inefficiency that to some extent he's exploiting. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. He's just doing it his way.
Yeah. You're way too much thinking there.
And two, years ago we were talking about how he wouldn't hire an assistant coach from outside of Clemson, and that was a problem. And they struggled, and he got forced into doing it. My guess is at some point in the next year or 2 years, if they don't win another national championship, that he's going to get forced into dealing with the portal more than he wants to. He begrudgingly does these things, not enthusiastically.
Look, all I know is that how Dabo is acting right now has emboldened every Alabama fan that I know, saying, all you idiots who thought we wanted Dabo or that Dabo was going to get the Alabama job, not talking like that, you're not. So I always thought that was interesting. David Hale, we appreciate.
I genuinely say this though. Dabo is still probably more right than wrong on a lot of things. Yeah, and it is a ethos, and part of me says like, well, you believe in something. It's what's the line from Lebowski? These men are nihilists, Donnie. They believe in nothing. He believes in something.
Yeah,
you know what? You're right.
He qualified the comment ultimately when he said the players in the portal aren't good enough to play for us. He qualified that by saying the guys who enter the portal know where they want to go and they have a price tag that basically we're not in on those players. But the truth of the matter is you can't lose to Florida State and Jared Verse and Keon Coleman and all of their transfers and be like, well, none of those guys are good enough for us because they weren't 5-star recruits out of high school.
You're spot on in referencing Florida State, too, because another thing I think Dabo would like to have everyone believe is that transfer guys are sort of like the JUCO guys from 10 years ago. Like, they're bad character guys. They're not going to fit in well. No, Florida State has gotten great character guys who have completely changed the culture of Florida State's locker room from maybe as bad as any locker room in the country 5 years ago to where it is now, maybe one of the best in the country. So, like, there is a way of doing this well. And Mike Norvell is doing it. So I don't, I'm with you on that. I don't buy that as a excuse.
David Hale, ESPN. We appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk to you later.
A delight.
Big thanks to Sporkle for helping us out with the OG birthday bash earlier this month. Jason did a wonderful job. If you would like to take advantage of some fun trivia when you got nothing else going on, or like you're trying to mix things up, trying to do something a little bit differently, you're tired of the same old, trivia always gets it done. So you can head on over to Shady's on Thursday nights, where Jason's doing his music trivia, thanks to Sporkle. And on Sunday at Driftwood Cantina, he's also doing it. Now, Sporkle's got other trivia nights, like at House of Hops. You can check them out, their locations. They got 3 different locations, one off Glenwood, one off Beale, one out in Pittsburgh. So they have their trivia nights. And again, you can check them out online at sporkle.com/OG Triangle. Memorial Day weekend is upon us. You're probably grilling out. Have you gone to the butcher's market to make sure you got everything that you need? Whether it's something to throw on the grill, sides are always money. So head on over to thebutchersmarkets.com. Again, that's thebutchersmarkets.com. Shout out to everybody who's been showing us their butcher's market gains. Like, here are the potato skins. Here's what I've thrown on the grill. Look at these veggies. It's all fantastic. And it's all at the butcher's market. Now, let's get to the fastest growing segment on the fastest growing podcast you can get locally in North Carolina.
Lightning round. Lightning round item number 1.
At some point, we have forgotten that rookies get taken advantage of once they enter the league.
Okay.
And it's been interesting to see the discourse around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA.
Okay.
She's had a little bit of a struggle adjusting to the WNBA. These are all things that were discussed while she was in college. These were all expected things. Now, she kind of shrugged off a turned ankle, and people were freaking out, but she's had her ups and downs. Her teammates either aren't calling out screens or whatever. She keeps getting rocked, and people are like, oh man, they're clearly targeting her. And I asked myself, how casual are you that this is a thing that you're concerned with, that you're essentially advocating? I've seen this online. You're essentially advocating for people to take it easy on Caitlin Clark. And I think to myself,
a basketball player, it was Jeff Teague, I think it was, the old Wake player.
What?
Said that basically they shouldn't let her win, but they should let her basically shoot because because she's their meal ticket. She's their Tiger Woods.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. How condescending. You people always talk about the condescending nature of
Teague. I'm not saying it was me.
I get it. But here's the mental block that I have. And I kind of feel for WNBA fans who have all these casuals kind of coming in because of Caitlin Clark, and they're all like, hey, could you not be as good? They're like, wait, is the WNBA actually good? Like, are there good players in this league?
WNBA is the toughest professional league in the world.
Right, and it's playing out that way. And it's as condescending as hell talking about women's sports like this. Because you would not talk about this in any other situation. Can you imagine last year with Bryce Young? Hey, he's short, guys. Can you guys like not put your arms up when you're trying to defend him? Or maybe give him can you count to 7 Mississippi so that Bryce can kind of see the field a little bit better? Like when Victor Wembanyama came in the league, where people were like, hey, guys.
Remember, he had one bad summer league game and people were worried. So
this is true. This was true. So come on now.
Future.
It's condescending as hell when we talk about Caitlin Clark like this, but this is what people are doing.
Lightning round item number 2.
Speaking of basketball, the other thing that I've seen this week, and it's hit a fever pitch because it starts tonight, the Boston Celtics have to win this championship or it's a complete failure, Joe. Either you're about that life for the Boston Celtics. If Jason Tatum's really the next big superstar, he's got to win the big one. And it's all there for the taking. They get the Pacers to come out of the East. And obviously Denver's been knocked out. So here we are. It's wide open for the Celtics. Win or bust.
I feel like if Dallas finds a way to beat Minnesota, then Boston will win the title. But I feel like if Minnesota wins, I think Minnesota is going to win. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
I feel like Boston's going to beat Indiana.
Yes.
Yes.
Unless everybody gets hurt.
Unless something strange.
Yeah, like everybody gets hurt.
Like really happens.
Yes.
I feel like Boston will beat Kyrie Irving. The mojo is there for them to beat Kyrie.
I can see that.
Okay.
I can see that.
But I do feel like all of the things that Minnesota does well athletically will bother the Celtics athletically because Derek White is really kind of the X factor for Boston. Their third banana, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If you just take Tatum and Jaylen Brown as the givens, then someone else has to win the game for you. And Derek White has done that for the Celtics, quite frankly, because Kristaps Porzingis has been hurt. Even if Kristaps comes back and they have to match up with Minnesota inside, we've already seen what they can do to a 7-foot Euro who can put the ball on the floor and handle it. So I understand as we've talked a lot about with the Hurricanes about their opportunity and their window and all of those things.
This is an opportunity.
I totally get that from the Boston point of view, but truth of the matter is Minnesota's just crazy athletic. Like crazy athletic.
The defense that we all obsessed over in the first 2 games of their series against Denver finally showed itself again in the fourth quarter. It came back. It came back. I'm with you. If they can get back to that level and the Ant-Man phenomenon continues, I can see that. I can see them winning the whole thing.
Thunder. What's he talking about? Thunder. You know, because thunder always comes after
lightning.
Lightning round item number 3.
Your Oilers moved on, but boy, did they make it stressful for themselves.
I'm glad I fell asleep when they were awake. I had a parlay for the Oilers, Stars, and Panthers to win their series.
Yeah,
individual series. And I kept waiting for DraftKings to offer me a buyout. And I was like, well, why are they not offering?
They closed it out.
Come on, man.
Offer
me that buyout. I mean, they ended up paying me the full boat. But yeah, the Oilers, man, if you're completely in your own realm of hockey and the Canes and this side of the river and all those things, but the Oilers get up and down the ice, man. They are the inverse of the Carolina Hurricanes in the sense that they have a top line that is the super duper ultra skilled of all skills. But those second and third and fourth lines, you're like, now who is this jabroni that they're throwing at? And who is this goalie? My God, their goalie situation is awful. But man, oh man, they are sexy as hell up top.
Yeah. It's funny when we were talking to Rod Brindamore yesterday, there was like, oh yeah, it's just must be nice to have like the 2 best players.
No, I said Connor McDavid. He's like, no, they got 2 of them.
They got 2 of them. 2 of those guys.
Lightning round item number 4.
We have not. I do my best to make sure that we don't get any sort of legal action sent to us.
Good call.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Some colorful language isn't going to do it. No. But but then again, we also don't get guests like Marvin Harrison Jr. on the podcast.
Okay.
So there's that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting sued by Fanatics.
Okay.
But there's a wrinkle to this, which is somewhat interesting, and it kind of shows you the current state of the media. So the baseline here is that he got drafted by the Cardinals, right? He's Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
So Harrison Jr. Is part of a dispute with Fanatics that they feel has something to do with like some sort of like football card related thing. And
here's the best understanding out of it I have.
Okay.
With NIL, Fanatics is now able to go into the college ranks and secure, for both card purposes and jersey purposes, in name, image, and likeness, for college, the top college players. Well, of course, when you're like a sophomore or a junior in college, you're like, oh yeah, give me that money. They're signing these deals, though, not realizing it bleeds into their first, second, and third years of their rookie deals in the NFL. And Marvin Harrison is now sitting here going, oh, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so you won't see him in Madden right now. He's at a standstill with how he'll appear in cards because of, and Fanatics, if you don't know, bought Topps and Upper Deck and Panini. They own everything now.
Mm-hmm.
So the card industry is about to be completely vertically integrated by Fanatics.
But at the heart of this, the interesting wrinkle here is that Pat McAfee somehow got roped into this because of what he talked about. So this is from Awful Announcing. Quote, at the heart of the lawsuit appears to be a report from Pat McAfee, who reported on his show that Harrison had not signed an official contract with Fanatics. McAfee added that Harrison backed out of his arrangement with Fanatics because he could not agree to the financial terms with the company after previously partnering with them while at Ohio State. The lawsuit appears to be a report that says basically saying that McAfee added that Harrison backed out of his arrangement with Fanatics because he could not agree to the financial terms with the company while at Ohio State. This is from McAfee. Fanatics is allegedly telling some folks they have a deal. They don't have a deal with Marvin. This is what he said on the May 1st show, telling other people not to work with him. And then Harrison Jr. later responded to the video from his own personal Twitter account and just went from there. So that's kind of where things are right now. And McAfee's been involved with this. This is, Fanatics is suing Marvin Harrison Jr. For leaking misleading information on the Pat McAfee show. And it goes from there. So this whole thing's all sort of tangled, but it does. The point here being that as NIL and these contracts start to be made, there is some nebulous stuff about how far does this go. Remember, Zion Williamson just got out of this after years of litigation because there was some sort of arrangement when he was at Duke, but then it wasn't. He said a bad business deal. They finally got out of that stuff.
It's almost like it's probably more of a college basketball issue that you're looking at it and you're going, you're DJ Burns, right? Yeah. The chances of you playing in the NBA aren't that great, right? So you're going to sign some deal in college that says, yeah, I'm going to maximize Armando Bacot, Oscar Schwebe, pick a college big. The guy from Gonzaga, who I've already forgotten his name. You're going to sign a deal and say, yeah, I'm going to make money while I can. Mm-hmm. Well, the college players have that same, college football players have that same opportunity. But Marvin Harrison, obviously, because of his whole family and understanding of how all of this works, was like, yeah. And then it started to pick up steam because people were like, no, wait a second. We can't buy your jersey yet. And you're not going to be on Madden. Like, what's going on? And that's where I think McAfee picks it up.
And finally,
last item in the lightning round.
The NFL has more meetings. It feels like you think we had a lot of meetings. The NFL loves having owners' meetings. The headline is that the owners are going to be discussing Tom Brady's ownership stake with the Raiders, which they feel came at a discounted rate with owner Mark Davis, and there's conflict of interest because he's got Fox and blah, 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 blah. The buried lead is that the NFL owners are considering taking on private equity firms to buy into ownership stakes of the NFL. This is a terrible idea, but I have a feeling or a hunch as to why this is happening. This is from Mark Mask, NFL reporter for the Washington Post. The owners are scheduled to discuss the private equity issue during this meeting, but it's questionable whether they will take a ratification vote, according to one person familiar with the inner workings. If any vote is taken, according to that person, it would be to approve a framework for allowing investments in NFL franchises by private equity. At some point, I'll be able to talk. Without the policy being finalized this week, another person said, if there is a vote taken this week on the issue, it would be preliminary. NFL ownership rules prohibit any investments in franchises by private equity firms, public corporations, or sovereign wealth funds, i.e. the Saudis. Those rules require the lead investor of an ownership group to have at least 30% equity stake in the purchase. No ownership group can exceed 25 people, including the lead investor. The group cannot borrow more than $1.2 billion to buy a team. So these are things that they're studying. Now, you're probably asking, why are they doing this? Well,
yeah, why are they doing it? They're printing money already.
Look, man, if there's one thing about capitalism that is the absolute best, there's never enough money to be made. Everybody wants their valuations of NFL franchises to go up. The problem is you've gotten to the point in the NFL where there's only so many people who can afford to buy an NFL team. There's not a lot of David Teppers out there that can just drop 2 billion in cash. And they're very wary of getting things, as I said, you can only finance so much, right? And we got another issue here, and I say this a lot. Money isn't cheap anymore. We are no longer in a ZERP, as they like to call it, a zero interest rate situation. Money's expensive now with the rates being what they are. And again, this is just me being an armchair, caveman economist here. But those are the basic frameworks of where they are. But these owners want their value to continue going up. That's why Roger Goodell has wisely done a very, very good job of piecing out these NFL packages and getting the tech companies to not just dabble in the NFL like Netflix is doing on Christmas Day or what NBC Universal did by putting a playoff game on Peacock. They wisely started involving these tech companies so that the legacy broadcast channels will go, oh shit, we can't lose this, because the only thing that rates on a consistent basis for broadcast television right now is the NFL. And the NFL only. All the other sports maybe pop up here and there, but the NFL is absolutely king. So if you're looking for your valuations to continue to go up, and there's only so many billionaires who are interested in owning a sports team, not that there's aren't a lot of billionaires, like locally, right? What do you think the sports landscape would look like if the guy who owned SAS was more interested in sports?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Does this feel like to you, are artists selling their catalog?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what this is.
Okay.
Because it makes more financial sense to just take that one lump sum to a private equity who will then strip your stuff for parts, and then you just go on your merry way.
Okay.
And this is the worry. Private equity gets involved, they're gonna strip you for parts. Everything private equity touches gets enshittified. Every single thing gets enshittified. So the minute you start inviting private equity money, what's going to end up happening is like what you've seen with Sports Illustrated 5 times over. There's going to be a zombie carcass of a franchise that's only looking at it for one thing and one thing only, not to be competitive on the football field. Because that's the difference between a private equity firm and a billionaire with an ego. Say what you want about David Tepper. The dude wants to fucking win. Jerry Jones, he might make a lot of mistakes, but he's a singular person with a lot of money who wants to freaking win. Once you get private equity, they're not interested in winning. They're interested in one thing and one thing only. Not winning, money.
That $50 parking becomes $100.
Right. So this is bad. This is bad. So, Mark Cuban said, the hogs get fat, the hogs get slaughtered as they go after all these television corners. That is not what's going to kill the NFL. What'll ultimately kill the NFL is them bringing on the Saudi investment group to come in, and they just go, hey, guess what? You think you've got money? We got real money, and we're about to change the entire landscape of this. So also, there's one last point on this, because I'm fired up on this particular topic.
I like it. Off-season protocols. You got to find something to get fired up over.
There is something inherently American about the NFL.
American.
Okay. And we can look past certain beer makers not being made or owned by American companies anymore.
Right.
All right. But the minute you start doing, you thought the NBA's ties with China were a hot topic. How is the good old American NFL that loves to wrap itself in the American flag going to handle private equity from foreign nations? Just saying. Now, again, I understand what the deal is because I live in the real world, but the NFL lives in its own world that they've crafted for themselves, and they are very, very, they are threading a very small needle, man, on this particular topic.
That's a lightning round.
So fast.
Off-season protocols. You'll get used to it. Just saying. Very quick. It's very, very quick. You want to take your time at Two Roosters is what you want to do. Head on over to Two Roosters, tworoosters.com, and you can check out their rotating flavors. They're all fantastic. They're all wonderful. And they're all at Two Roosters. I was at the Greystone Shopping Plaza yesterday. I was catching up with Russell the Love Muscle yesterday.
Yeah.
Two Roosters right there. They got all the little signs of telling you what's going on. Now they're closed on Monday at the Greystone place.
All their Mondays, yep.
When I've been there on a non-Monday, there's just packed. It's just packed at Two Roosters. So you can tell a lot by a place by how many people are going there. Two Roosters is definitely it. So check them out, tworoosters.com. Also, big thanks to Hometown Realty. We talk about things not being cheap. Buying a house, interest rates, all that stuff. That's threading the needle, man. And Hometown Realty can help you out with this. It's all about buying and selling with confidence. So check them out online at myhtr.com. Again, that's myhtr.com.
Hey, Joe questions.
It's brought to you by Crank Arm. Check them out, crankarmbrewing.com. Loved that they helped us out during the
Pilsner and New England IPA.
Don't sleep on the Saison.
They're calling again.
Comes in at a cool 7.5%.
No.
You wouldn't know it.
No, sir.
You wouldn't know it.
No,
so check them out, crankarmbrewing.com. It's merch too. I'm rocking the Crank Arm t-shirt today if you're watching on
right here.
On YouTube. All right, let's go to you get the hoodie. Let's do a Hey Joe from the OG Sports phone. Call 919-444-2211.
Hey Joe, I'm driving to work this morning. It's just shy of 7:30, and I'm following the Scotty Scheffler news. Honestly, I don't get the big deal. Surely we can pluck one of the Stay Ready All-Stars up in North Hills and get him out to Kentucky for, I don't know, maybe a 2 o'clock tee time at worst. It's a Friday. They won't be missed too much at work. It'll be all right. I think that everyone just needs to calm down. We're good to go. This is their time to shine.
That's also one of your greatest hits.
I feel like
Stay ready.
I'm going to have to hit up I'm gonna have to hit up Breaking Tea for a new T-shirt idea for the Stay Ready All Stars. Just to
have a white belt, an outline with a white belt.
I apparently have touched a nerve, even with some of our corporate champions.
I know.
I have heard.
How dare you?
I've heard from Adam at Breeze Through. He's like, "Hey, you never know.
For real,
they might need you for 9 holes at RCC. Just saying." And Bennett over at Heaster, he's like, "Whoa, hey, come on now." But look, if that's your look, that's your look.
Yeah.
My Stay Ready All-Star look is I could be at a brewery at any moment. In fact, I need to go do that now. I was going to do the 919 Vice podcast.
Tuesday?
It's Tuesday, so I'm going to be podcasting today. So anyway, let's see. Let's go to Twitter from Young Left-Hander. If I were one of the many fine corporate champions of Ovies and Chilio, I'd want it in the contract that they sing the jingles themselves at least once a week. Tremendous stuff.
Yeah, we did.
It is what it is. I had the roadcaster with me without all the bells and whistles on it. So it is what it is. From 2 Growls, 1 Roar. I think I saw that on the internet once. Hey, all, just wanted to say I appreciate your work. Hardcore ACC guy that doesn't know a lot about hockey, but enjoyed following along the season. That's the goal, man.
Yeah.
Bring you into the fold. Have some fun with it. Along for the journey. So appreciate that. In fact, got a lot of feedback on our conversation with Rod Brindamore and Don Waddell yesterday from Nick. Fantastic interviews with Rod and Don. I appreciate the real questions and staying away from the fluff BS ones.
Still a few of those, but
there was it. I like to. They're like you pointed out to me one time. They're conversations.
Yeah,
not interviews. They are conversations. And that's how I like to look at that. From Wolfpack Lamb, Dundon is obviously a tough negotiator and has made some unpopular operations decisions, but you can't call the man cheap from a player perspective. He's spent to the cap and has elected a strategy of trying to have more balance rather than ultra high end talent. That's what they've been doing. That's why when we talk about the Canes and everything else, we can't act as though they're not spending money. They've been a cap team for a couple years now.
Yeah.
It's how they're allotting the money.
The difference here with Dundon is he'll spend as much as he can in order to win, if he feels like it helps the team win. Off the ice, he's cheap. Like most ultra rich people, he knows how to conserve his wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't get to be like that by buying avocado toast, Joe.
I'll just say it. Not sending Mike and Tripp to 2 games in New York was cheap.
It is what it is.
That's cheap.
It is what it is. All right, we'll get out of here on this from Bull City Coordinators. Just wrapped yesterday's OG episode. What model G-Shock did you get? Asking because I'm way into watches. I have the...
Just to be clear, the Stay Ready All Stars is a problem, but your watch
is with my with my G-Shock. No, so this is the digital fitness, it's a fitness watch technically, but I got it because if I'm going on my stupid walks for my stupid mental health, or if I attempt running again and my sleep tracking, that's why I got this G-Shock, because the full-on Apple phone or the Apple Watch is like overkill for me.
Okay.
But yeah, this is the H5600 that it's like $300. Actually, I bought this with some DraftKings winnings.
Sweet.
That's what I did with it, because I couldn't get the money to my bank account, so I had to send it over to a PayPal account. I don't know. It's my own stupidity. But I got the money to a PayPal account, and then I used that PayPal account to buy the watch. But to Ben's point, when I was doing reviews, I was reading the reviews of what watch to buy. Reddit is a very valuable source for these type of things. But the problem with Reddit is the minute you go to one of their subreddits, even if you don't subscribe to it, it'll then feed you algorithmically the stuff. And now I get the G-Shock subreddit fed to me all the time. And it's a problem.
I'm Silk the
Shocker. It's a problem because I'll hey, I'm wearing my watch today. I'm like, oh damn, that's a good looking watch. Am I about to be a watch guy? Like, am I going to evolve from
do that.
Am I going to evolve from being vinyl guy to watch guy?
Don't do that.
Oh man, I'm going to go all in on swatches. Do they still make swatches? They still do? Man, I remember when swatches were the shit. You had the cool little bands you'd put over the face to protect them. Cool colors. All right, I'm not going to be a watch guy. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We'll see you tomorrow.